you miss me? I've been out of a comatose, but the depression is over.
Hello and welcome to Controlled Burns, the new hobby list podcast hosted by me, Andrew Burns from Wildfire Gaming. I thought we were going to have our first guest on this week, but I had to change plans, and that's going to result in the late upload. So sorry about that. But today I'm going to talk about PlayStation trophies and my journey to becoming a video game completionist, which is going to include a list, believe it or not, of ranking my current trophy list of platinum trophies, which is 38 that I have so far. And I'm also going to talk about some of my upcoming trophy projects and tell some other trophy stories that I have had over my few years as a trophy hunter. You can listen to the show on all major podcasting networks, including Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and YouTube. And you can write into the podcast at ControlledBurnes with an ES at gmail.com. So my journey to becoming a video game completionist. This was not always the case. When I was a kid and first getting into gaming, I didn't finish a lot of games. I mean, if I remember, I didn't even finish my first Pokemon game until I think I was in high school by the time that I finished it, and it was a big moment for me, playing Fire Red. And I remember my brother was cheering me on, having finished many Pokemon games before me. Uh, I'm not sure about the first game that I ever finished. There's some contenders on there. I know that A Bug's Life for the PlayStation 1 was the first one that I really got into and played whenever I would go to my dad's house on his PlayStation. But I do know that the first game that I ever 100%ed had to be Spyro Year of the Dragon, which was really a very critical and important game for me getting into video games. It was the first game that I really wanted to have when I got my own PlayStation. And that was one of the few games at that time that not only did I finish, but I 100%ed. I know that other games that I finished during my adolescence, the other two Spyro games, the Spyro games were very easy for me and just achievable, I guess, for me to 100%. Jack and Daxter, PlayStation 2, kind of a natural progression there, but I definitely 100% of that one. I also definitely 100% of Lego Star Wars for the PlayStation 2, just the original with the prequels. And that was actually, it's a Lego game, but it actually, if you played it, that's a pretty tall order completing that game. So that was pretty impressive. Um, and then as I became an adult, there were a few others that I finished. This is still all before I was getting into PlayStation trophies. Some standouts here were like the Herbs, which is an interesting deep cut there, but that was the Sims game, the Herbs, kind of a spin-off on the PlayStation 2 featuring the Black Eyed Peas. Crash Bandicoot 2, I remember there was I think it was a holiday break while I was in college where I went home and actually played all the way through Crash Bandicoot 2 and got the 100%. I definitely finished it as a kid, but getting the 100%, that was a big one. I guess I should mention that as a kid, I definitely 100% in Crash Team Racing as well. But Crash Bandicoot 2 was the first of the platformer ones that I completed. And then I, it's kind of nebulous to say I completed these games because they're so big and there could be some things that I missed here and there. But the original Legend of Zelda and Zelda Twilight Princess, those were games that I really pulled up guides and like tried to really do everything that you could do in those games. So those were kind of some early examples of me being a bit of a completionist when it came to my video games. But like I said, it was really not the norm at first. Um, Now where the PlayStation trophies come in, because this is my preferred metric, I guess, that I use for completing games. Um, as I mentioned, PlayStation has always kind of been my primary gaming platform. I got my first PlayStation. Well, I would play it at my dad's house, and I would go over to his house. He just had it for himself. Every other weekend, I would play his. And I remember he played games like Gran Turismo. He was really into Madden. He did buy me A Bug's Life, and we played that as a family. And I loved going over there and playing the PlayStation. But it's probably one of the things I was looking forward to the most when I would go over there. But I didn't have my own until my seventh birthday, actually, which was in 2000, March 2001. So I was, PlayStation 2 was out at this point. I don't even know if I really knew that. I was definitely not as plugged into the industry as I am now, that's for sure. But yeah, still spent some quality time with that original PlayStation before, of course, graduating to PlayStation 2, and I've gone through all of the PlayStations since then. Um, but I didn't start playing games with trophies until probably the early 2010s because I was kind of a late bloomer on the PlayStation 3 and frankly Wi-Fi as well. And in my household, we lived in a small town in Northeast Texas, called Leonard. Shout out to Leonard. And we were we probably could have had Wi-Fi sooner than we did, but it just wasn't something that we really needed, I guess. And so I don't think I connected my PlayStation 3 into the internet until as late as 2013, which is crazy because I'd started college by that point. But if you go back and look at my PlayStation 3 games with on my trophy list, none of them have dates until 2013. So there are actually some games like at the bottom of my trophy list. Specifically, we have WWE Legends of WrestleMania, Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection, Band Hero, which is a knockoff of Guitar Hero, and Mirror's Edge, kind of a deep cut there from EA. Didn't come anywhere near to finishing any of those games, but also I do have some trophies in them that do not have dates. None of the trophies that I have, the few trophies that I have dates. Um, I didn't play a lot of other PlayStation 3 games at that time, other than after I got into the Fallout games. So that's Fallout 3 and New Vegas, and then of course Skyrim. But yeah, and so I do have some trophies in all those games. I think actually by the time I got to Skyrim, I was connected to the internet. So all of my Skyrim trophies do have dates. I think I started that on the PlayStation 3 in like 2014. But for the Fallout 3 in New Vegas, there are definitely a lot of trophies that still don't have dates and never will because the PlayStation just doesn't have the ability to access that data. So in terms of really getting into trophies, when I first kind of started thinking about them more, I would say was from a couple of YouTube channels that I was starting to watch at this time. They're definitely channels that I watch more today, but they're sort of on my periphery. I think the first one was probably PlayStation Access with Rob Pearson. It's a British YouTube channel and very entertaining. I recommend it if you're a PlayStation fan. But he would make a lot of trophy related videos that kind of made them it's fun to talk about. And like he was an aspiring trophy hunter, but also he didn't have many trophies himself. And then what really started hitting that home was actually Mystic Ryan, who is my favorite PlayStation YouTuber today and one of my favorite channels just on all of YouTube, frankly. And did a lot of videos, particularly back in the day, but still every once in a while, even today, where he was talking about trophies. So at this point, I was interested in them, but not really enough to really go for them myself. It just seemed like too much work. And I just didn't know if I wanted that kind of stress in my life. There's a lot of horror stories from people going from trophies, and I remember I would look at the trophy list and be like, "Oh, this seems like a lot of work." However, it was around this time. This is late 2018 where I did actually earn my first two platinum trophies, and it makes sense when you see what they were, which because they were the trophies for two of the Spyro games from the reignited versions that came out in late 2018. So my first one was Spyro the Dragon, and then I actually skipped Spyro 2 and went to Spyro. I mean, I played it obviously, and I did 100% it, but I didn't get all the trophies because there's some in those trophy lists, it's not just about 100%ing the games. You do have to do some extra little things. You don't have to go super far out of your way on those, but I didn't bother for Spyro 2 because again, I didn't really care about trophies. And also Spyro 2 is my least favorite of the three, but I did get the one in Spyro 1 and Spyro 3. But even though I wasn't really, I don't think thinking too hard about getting trophies. But where I really started clicking on the trophy front and I really started getting interested in hunting for them was during the pandemic in early 2020. I think like a lot of people, I was shut up in the home in my house. I had a lot of time on my hands. And in particular for me, I was living by myself in New Jersey. I had made the move from Texas to New Jersey in December 2019 for a new job, and it's a job that I still had today at New Project Media, where I do actually host the Odd Podcast. If you want to listen to a very different podcast about very different topics that you hear on this show. That's at NPM Interconnections. But yeah, I moved up to New Jersey for that. It was a huge move for me. I moved across the country. I did it in my car. Just kind of gathered up the stuff that I wanted to move with and went up there and bought new furniture. It was a huge move for me. And I worked in this co-working space with my other colleagues at NPM for about 4 months, and then COVID happened. And it was a very different reaction to COVID up in New Jersey as opposed to down here in Texas. They were really locked down. I would leave my house like once a week to get groceries, and that was it. And so yeah, that was I had a lot of time on my hands for some gaming at that time, as I think a lot of us did. So at that point, I was playing through a lot of the Final Fantasy games, which is my favorite series. I was really excited about Final Fantasy VII Remake that was coming out in April. And so I played through a lot of Final Fantasies in a relatively short amount of time. I played through 4, 6, 7, Crisis Core. None of those versions have trophies except for 7, and I wasn't going for the platinum trophy in that. Because again, I still wasn't really going for trophies at this point. And then of course I played through Final Fantasy VII Remake and absorbed that and went through it pretty fast for especially for how long it usually takes me to get through games of that size. And after that was done with that, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. But in the lead up to it, I had played like after I had finished Crisis Core, I had a little bit of time on my hands. And I didn't really want to start any other Final Fantasies because the point was to get hyped for 7. So I was like, I'll do something that's a little bit smaller, just while it's just had a few days until release date. So I played Sly Cooper on the PlayStation 3. So I played through 1 and 2. I actually didn't get the time to go through 3 before 7 Remake came out. But I did play through 1 and 2. And those were another other examples of kind of similar to Spiral, where I just by playing them, I almost had the platinums. And so, again, I'd been watching these videos, particularly Mystic Ryan, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go back and just check off those 2 trophy lists. Why not, right? And I was pretty much there. I just had to. I was just missing some bottles in Sly 1, and Sly 2. I just had to pick up a few. Uh, like you can buy moves, like special moves that you can do, abilities, I guess. And so I needed to buy a few of those. And that was it. And boom, I did those. And then I decided that I was going to play through Jack and Daxter on the PlayStation 3. I mentioned at the jump that that was one of my favorite games as a kid. And that trophy list is really just 100% in the game. So I did that one too. And so at that point, I had 5 shiny new platinum trophies. And I was like, well, this is kind of fun. Now, around this time, I started to actually head back home to Texas. I was going to stay with my mom a little bit because it was becoming apparent that this was going to be, the whole working remote thing was going to be the case for an extended period, much longer than we expected. And I was, it was going on about 2 months there of like no human interaction whatsoever. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to go home and spend some time with my family and my brother in particular. So we did, and I was hanging out, spending a lot of time hanging out with him, and we decided to go for some other trophies because he got interested in what I was doing, and the big one was Crash Team Racing Nitro Fuel, which is again a game that we played when we were kids, but now we had this remade version that had the platinum trophy, and so that was the first one that really challenged me because there's some tough stuff in there, particularly with the trial the time trials, and it's still I think my rarest platinum trophy at 0.5% rarity. That's like I think that's a statistic from all the people that have at least earned 1 trophy in the game. 0.5% have the platinum. And I got that one on June 3rd, 2020, and that was actually almost exactly a week from when my brother got his on May 26th. So he beat me to the punch on that one. So at this point, I'm really having fun. And so I went ahead and grabbed the low hanging fruit that was Spyro 2 that I had left over from June 13th. And then later that month, The Last of Us Part 2 came out, which I was very excited about, having been a fan of the original. And so I played through that game regularly. I wasn't really thinking about trophies on that one because I was just trying to absorb that story. But then afterward, I did decide to play through it again and got the platinum in that. And that earned date was July 20th. So at this point, I'm feeling like basically I'm a trophy hunter. Like I'm enjoying this. I've got really gone out of my way for trophies for like Crash and The Last of Us. And so by the end of that year, I added Ghost of Tsushima, which came out that year, Doom from 2016. I did the PS4 version for Jack and Daxter, which is actually my first speed run platinum, where I found out about this website, PSN Profiles, where you can kind of track your platinums and your trophy hunting. And so I got in on that, and then I noticed that it actually had a leaderboard of the 50 fastest achievers. And it's really for the 100% rather than the platinum, which there is a distinction there. 100% is like doing every trophy, even those added through DLC. Platinum is just like the original trophy list, basically doing everything on that. And so But for a lot of games, there's really no difference, the particularly older ones like Jack and Daxter. So it's the 100% list is essentially just the same thing as the platinum list. And for the 100% list, it has the 50 fastest achievers. And so I actually streamed my playthrough of Jack and Daxter on my PS4. You go back and watch it on Wildfire Gaming on YouTube, and I got finished it with a time of 3 hours and 8 minutes, which was good enough for number 17 on PSN profiles, and that is still I was actually higher than that at first, but I've since been bumped down a little bit to number 17, and that is where I am still today. You can go on PSN profiles and see me there. Um, on Jack and Daxter, specifically the PS4 version. So I added all those platinums and then also Skyrim and of course Astro's Playroom because I was an early adopter of the PlayStation 5. So by the end of the year I had all of those. And then I even during that year I even went back to some old childhood games that didn't even have platinum trophies like Super Mario 64, that Switch version that came out, and A Bug's Life on the PlayStation Vita. And 100% of them. And those were kind of some fun games to check off. So from that point on, that's the end of 2020 into now toward the end of 2024, I have pretty much anytime I'm playing a new game, I'm thinking about the platinum trophy, if it's on PlayStation. And it's actually made me skew even further toward playing games on PlayStation if I can for that reason. So that actually kind of has, I think, eat ate into the amount of time that I've spent on other platforms, specifically the Switch and of course the Xbox, but I probably wouldn't have spent a whole lot of time with that console anyway. So in 2021, another big thing that I did that was a big bucket list thing for me was I did complete the National Pokedex for the first time. This is in Gen 4, so it's not like I've completed the current. There isn't even a National Pokedex anymore with the way Pokemon is, where they don't have all the Pokemon in each game, which is a shame. But in Gen 4, so that's the first four games essentially. Um, I did complete that Pokedex. That was a huge undertaking. It was a lot of fun. And really, I had kind of been working on that in 2020 and into 2021. It took me a long time to pull that off. And it's still, I haven't actually completed any of the other Pokedexes since then. I'm pretty close, I think, on Gen 5. And so I do aspire to eventually work my way up through the rest of the series. But for now, at least, though, Gen 4, specifically on Heart Gold, I do have the completed Pokedex, which is a huge achievement. That doesn't have anything to do with trophies, but it is just, it kind of is an example of how it's gone beyond just trophies for me. It's that completionist mindset really has gotten into me. But trophies are my favorite just because of the feeling. Well, we'll get into that. Today I have 38 platinum trophies and two additional 100%. These are for games that actually don't have platinum trophies, and those are for Observation and Star Wars Racer Revenge, both of which I got this year. And then I will mention, have a 1,000 achievement point finish for one game on Xbox, which is for Psychonauts 2. I played that game on Xbox because of Game Pass. That was before I had my Series X, but I played it on the Xbox One S. My most recent platinum was, as I'm recording this, 2 days ago, which was Spiritfarer on the PlayStation 5. I'd actually almost 100% in that game on Xbox, but I was missing one achievement for an achievement that you can easily miss because there's a choice that you make kind of in the middle of the game, and I didn't realize that it was kind of an either or in terms of the achievement, so I did miss that. But I was ready for it this time on PlayStation, and I got save scummed it and got it. But yeah, getting into why I love trophies so much. There's really three main reasons. I really love the feeling of satisfaction for seeing everything there's to see in a game. And this works for games that don't have trophies too, but it's not quite the same level of satisfaction I found as trophies. It's just kind of that goal at the end of the run to shoot for. I really like it if you can just sort of check it off the list. And it really has, and when I say check off the list, I mean like just check it off of like the internal list of like, this is a game that I truly have seen everything there is to see in it. I don't have to go back to it. And it actually has really led to me replaying games less once I get the platinum trophy in that game. I've throughout my life I've been a notorious replayer, and I think that has cut into the number of games that I've finished. I mean, I've still no slouch in that department. I've finished about 310 games in my life, which I'm pretty proud of that. But yeah, I mean, I think it probably would be a lot more if I didn't spend so much time replaying my favorites. But with the platinum trophies and really getting those trophies, it really feels like a nice like endpoint where it's like, wow, I've really done all there is to do in this game. It's time to move on. Um, they also, one thing I really like about platinum trophies, and this is really only applies to specific kinds of games, but I really like that they provide an end goal for quote unquote endless games or multiplayer games, and that makes them much more enticing for me to play. Um, I don't really like the idea of sinking like an unlimited amount of time into one product. I know a lot of people do that today, and I don't blame them for that, especially with how expensive games are. And if you have something that you really find fun and that you can do over and over again, good on you. I mean, I'm not gonna cast shade on you for that, but for me, I really like having new experiences, getting new stories. And so I don't really like that feeling. I mentioned on the last episode that there was like a solid 2 years in 2015 through 2017 where I was basically playing nothing but Fallout 4 after it came out. And that was a lot of fun. I mean, I love that game still to this day, but um I also kind of look back on that and I'm like, oh man, that was kind of a waste of time in terms of I could have had a lot of new experiences that I missed out on during that time. And I now keep a list, if believe it or not, of all of the games that I start in a year and all the games that I play in a year. And of course, I'll share that when we get to the end of this year on the podcast. But I really like, and this has come into play as you'll see from my trophy list. I really like having an end goal for these sort of endless games, and it takes them from games that I never really want to play or that I was too intimidated by in terms of the time sink to making them really fun for me to play actually. And some of my favorite trophies have been uh multiplayer focused as we'll get into. And then I guess the last thing here is that it's just really fun to sort of run up the score and add more trophies to the collection. It's fun to like go back and see, wow, I got 38 platinum trophies. Here's all the trophies that I have. And especially with the new PlayStation 5 home screen, I can see them front and center right there when I turn on my console. And it's like, man, there's my nice collection. And I think maybe part of that is just like a psychological thing where I think it goes back to maybe growing up on 3D platformers, right? Like Spyro and Collectathons and Jack and Daxter, like that growing up on that kind of stuff and like getting everything weirdly, I think kind of translates to getting all the platinum trophies in games today. So I want to talk about all the games that I have the platinum trophy for, and I'm going to rank them from the ones that are my least favorite to my favorites. Now, these are not ranking the games individually. This is specifically focusing on the trophy lists themselves. I'm not going to go into quite as much detail on the games themselves as I did, obviously, for the top 25, and this is a longer list, so I want to get through it a little bit quicker here. But I do want to just kind of give a shout to the games that I've completed and some of my memories for completing those. So I'm going to start with the two, I guess you could call them honorable mentions in a way, but these are the two games that I mentioned that don't actually have platinum trophies, but that I did get all of the trophies in. And both of them were pretty memorable, and they were both this year. So the first one was Observation. This was a 2019 horror puzzle game, a really cerebral game, really makes you think. You're basically playing as this AI watching over this astronaut in space after something has gone horribly wrong. And there's a lot of really startling elements in there with some amazing twists and some big revelations. I really recommend if you're interested in that at all in that kind of thing. It's a big recommend from me. But if you do get motion sick, watch out because there's a lot of kind of weird space stuff going on with perspective and particularly with the first person perspective. So like it's probably not a great game for my wife, for example, because she gets motion sick. But it's too bad because it really is a cool, very unique game. Getting all the trophies in it really does basically require a guide, I will say, because you do need to find every little piece of lore and like comb every room in this pretty large space station. But I do think it's worth it as it did enhance the game significantly for me. And I think as we talk about this, you'll see that that's kind of the mark of a great trophy list for me is a list that where getting the trophies really enhances the experience. Like I feel better about or I'm more attached to or I overall my experience was better with a game because of the trophies. And there's some that go the opposite direction, which is not what you want. It's the example of a bad trophy list, and we'll get into that. But the other game that I 100% but didn't have a platinum trophy was Star Wars Racer Revenge, which is kind of a fun fact there. That was actually the first game that I ever owned on my PlayStation 2, which was at my dad's house. So he was the first to get a PlayStation 1 in my family. He was also the first to get a PlayStation 2. And well, I think actually technically my uncle Gary had his PlayStation 2 first, but we didn't really play it a whole lot other than playing PlayStation 1 games on it because like his PlayStation 2 games were like uh he had like a college football game. Like I think this is like NCAA 2001 and maybe NFL 2001. So yeah, we didn't spend a whole lot of time with that. Oh, but he did have Fantavision for the PlayStation 2. That was like this weird fireworks game that actually is on the PlayStation 4 and 5 today, which is pretty wild. That game of all games is I think it must have been a launch title for PlayStation 2. But yeah, shout out to Fantavision if you remember that one. But anyway, in terms of Star Wars Race Revenge, this was a game that I played very early on in my development as a kid. But what's interesting is this trophy list was actually probably harder than any of my actual games that I got platinums on. It's ridiculous it doesn't have a platinum trophy for doing this, specifically due to the difficulty for the best lap times and just I think race time. But I think it was specifically I guess it was a race time on one track and a lap time on another track, basically like the two last tracks in the game that basically force you to play absolutely flawlessly. And you can't just do it with any character either. You got to have unlocked Darth Maul, which is ridiculous because he doesn't race pods, but he does in Star Wars Racer Revenge. And you got to play like flawlessly with him and his busted ass stats. It is crazy, crazy hard. It took me hours and hours and hours. It was just bad. I stayed up all night the night before I was supposed to appear at um this field. It was like a wasn't a volunteer day, but it was like a day where they were doing a tour at this field that's owned by the Nature Conservancy where my wife was interning over the summer. And I did not sleep that night. I was trying to get the fastest time in Star Wars Racer Revenge, and I just couldn't do it. And I had to go to the field and walk all over that field for hours, and it was hot and it was miserable. And then when I got home, I went to sleep and took a nap. And then whenever I woke up from that nap, I went downstairs and I got the fastest time on Star Wars Racer Revenge. So that's one that I will not soon forget. But anyway, so those are the 100% without platinums. But now getting into the platinum list, and I'm going to start with number 38 with Game of Thrones from Telltale. So I earned this one on December 31st, 2021, ringing in the new year with my wife on this one for 2022. But there's not a whole lot to say about this. This is one of those if you've ever played a Telltale game, you know that it's basic. Not all of them are like this, but for the most part, it's basically just play through the game, you get the platinum trophy. They're pretty notorious for these easy platinums. So I didn't put it at the bottom here because I didn't have to go out of my way whatsoever to get the platinum trophy here. But I did have a good time playing through that game with my wife. We're big Game of Thrones fans, especially her, and neither of us knew what was going to happen in that game. So that was a fun experience, especially to finish that one off and then bring it in the new year. Number 37 was God of War Ascension. So this I earned this one on May 4th, 2022. In 2022, I played basically all of the God of War games in the lead up to Ragnarok. But I only got a few. I didn't get the platinum trophies in all of them. Part of that is because I played the actual PSP versions of the PSP games, which is Chains of Olympus and Ghost of Sparta. So those didn't have trophies. And then God of War 1 and 2, I didn't get because it did require replay. So usually if a game requires a replay, I don't get it right away. But God of War Ascension didn't actually require a replay. This was the first time and probably only time that I'm planning on playing through that game. Um, I'm already not super crazy about the old school God of War games, and this did not turn that around for me, I've got to say. There's not much to this trophy list either, except for that you do have to play on hard, so that probably didn't help my enjoyment of the game. But to be honest, after getting used to it, like in the first couple hours and getting some early powers, I don't really remember struggling too much with the difficulty. But yeah, once I finished it, I did have a nice shiny new platinum waiting for me, so that was cool. Number 36 then is God of War 3 Remastered, and I got this one on September 27th, 2022. Now, I mentioned I'm not a huge fan of the old school God of War games, but 3 is the exception. I really think that game is great. I have no qualms about it. I think it's an awesome game, way better than all the other old school God of War games. Stig Asmussen really he dialed down all the lame puzzles and dialed up all the fun combat and set pieces, which is thumbs up for me on that one. But This was my second time playing through the game, and I will say it was significantly less enjoyable than the first time because I had to play on hard instead of just the normal difficulty, and that was a pain, particularly with the final boss. I remember having some trouble, and then there's like these annoying challenges that you have to do in the post game. I can't remember what they call them, but it's just basically like you're in this arena and you have to do like some specific little things, and it's a pain in the ass. Um, that is not particularly fun. This is a good example of a trophy list that I think actually detracts from the experience, which is the opposite of what you want. But there it is, God of War 3. That was number 30. That I'm putting that at number 36 on this list. So number 35 is The Artful Escape. This was a trophy I earned this year, May 13th, 2024. I wanted to put this one higher as I really enjoyed this experience. I didn't know a whole lot going into The Artful Escape, but I knew it was artsy and it was music focused, and I love music very much. So, I decided to go for it. There isn't really much. It's kind of like the Telltale games. There's not a whole lot to this trophy list other than finishing the game. There are a couple little fun things you have to do, like you have to light up this town early in the game with the power of your guitar, and then you do have to stand there for 3 minutes during a jam session where to simulate stage fright. So that was kind of funny. But yeah, there's not a whole lot to that trophy list. I'm kind of surprised that it even has a platinum trophy. It's kind of ridiculous that that has a platinum trophy and like Star Wars Racer Revenge that I spent hours trying to do, or even Observation, which was it was a lot of work to get all of those pieces of lore. They didn't have platinum trophies, but hey, whatever. I don't make the rules. Number 35, The Artful Escape. Number 34, I'm gonna put Mass Effect Legendary Edition. So this is the remastered version on the PlayStation 4. And I earned this one on May 31st, 2021, which is almost exactly 2 weeks after it came out. I played through this series for the first time on PlayStation 3. It's one of my all-time favorites. So I was super hyped about the remaster collection, especially since, PlayStation 3, the performance and the visuals, not the best. So, yeah, I was super hyped for this. I actually had trouble sleeping the night before, which is ridiculous for a grown man in 2021. But yeah, I'm just being honest. I was really excited about that one. I got the platinum, like I mentioned, just over 2 weeks. It launched on May 15th. The trophy list is a lot easier than it was for the original Mass Effect 1, which required like a ton of replays. That was a pain in the ass. I definitely don't have the platinum trophy in that one. I probably won't. PS3 trophies were just generally a lot harder than what you see in modern trophy lists, but yeah, that's kind of interesting to track that progression there. But the remaster is awesome. The trophy list, it's not much to write home about. You basically do everything in the game, and you do have to. It does require you to use a variety of skills, which it does at least does require you to experiment a little in combat, and it also requires you to spend time with each party member, which is cool. I like that. I think too often in Mass Effect games people kind of pick their go-to party members and they don't mix it up at all. I like mixing it up and you randomizing my team as I go into new missions and stuff. So I like being forced to mix it up a little on that front. Number 33 then is Sly Cooper in the Thievius Raccoonus. So I earned this one on May 21st, 2020. I've already kind of talked about this one as one of my earliest ones. It's also my first and currently only playthrough of this game. I played through Sly 2 as a kid, although I didn't finish it until 2020 either. But I I'd never played Sly 1. It definitely pales in comparison to Sly 2, I've got to say. It's very easy, trophy list. You basically just finish the game, get all the bottles. Doesn't even require the speed runs, which are in the game. Like you're supposed to like kind of like Crash Bandicoot style, get through the stages at a certain amount of time. But I never bothered doing that because there's not even a trophy for it. So yeah, easy cleanup for me on this one for after beating the game, just going back and getting a few of the bottles that I missed. Number 32, then. This is Jak and Daxter, but specifically the Vita version. I got this one on July 12th, 2022. I have to rank each version of these games separately because they all have a different platinum trophy. So I have like basically three platinum trophies on my profile from Jak and Daxter. Now I love Jak and Daxter, and I think it's one of the greatest 3D platformers ever made. It totally blew my mind as a kid, being the one huge interconnected world, which was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. That was where things were broken up into stages. Still respect it greatly for that. But the Vita version, not so much. It's I think if you know anything about the Vita version, you understand why. It's notoriously buggy. It has a horrendous frame rate. But it also has few players, which makes it a great opportunity to replicate the speed run on PSN profiles and make it on the top 50 on that game. So I did go for that. But it's a funny story here. Disaster actually kind of struck when I wasn't paying close attention. I 100% of the game. I'm done. I've destroyed the robot at the end, and I am missing a couple of trophies that required you just these two mini games where you have to use the Vita touchscreen controls, and I didn't do that. I didn't look close enough to notice that. And one of these mini games was actually in the second area of the game, so it's like after the 20 precursor or I'm sorry, power cell gate that you have to get through. You have to get 20 power cells to even get to that second area. So I had to start the game over and speed run back to that. So my final time was almost 2 hours longer than my PS4 run, 4 hours and 58 minutes. But because nobody plays the Vita version, that's enough to get me rank 9 on PSN profiles on that leaderboard. I haven't even thought about how much higher I would have been if I didn't have that big screw up, which is funny. But already my time would have been longer just because the Vita version is such trash. But yeah, I definitely could have done it a little bit faster than that if I had been paying closer attention. But I had that one much lower than the other Jag and Daxter just because the Vita version sucks. Number 31. Parappa the Rapper Remastered. And this is actually a fairly recent earn date of May 5th, 2024. Now, this is probably realistically the worst game that I have a platinum in. Can maybe make an argument for Star Wars Racer Revenge, but I will say it's easy to kind of fall in love with Parappa the Rapper just because it's so charming. It's a very a product of its time on the PlayStation 1, and they just don't make games like that anymore. And like the humor in it and just like the storytelling and voice acting is just so kind of terrible, but also very charming. But unfortunately, the mechanically it is pretty rough, which actually makes this platinum deceptively challenging. You got to freestyle. Basically, the way that works is you can just replicate it's kind of like a Simon Says, but with music. So you just kind of replicate what the leader does. But if you freestyle, you can get above the good rating to the cool rating. Shout out to Tree Trunk Sean there. But you have to freestyle your way to that, so you can't just like get a cool rating from just repeating what they do. You actually have to like make shit up, which is and like what the game likes for making stuff up and what it doesn't like is unknown to me. It just seems completely random. So yeah, that's no easy feat to achieve that, particularly on stage 4. It's just like legendarily broken. Like it's just like way the timing is off or something, and everybody struggles with stage 4 where the chicken is making the cake or whatever. So that was tough. And then even after you get all the cool ratings, luckily there's only 6 songs in the game, so you don't have to spend too much time on that. But even after you get all the cool ratings, then there's another challenge, which is even tougher, where you have to go from an awful performance. That's basically almost failing the game. If you think about it in Guitar Hero terms, it's like you're in the red and the screen is flashing to finishing the song with a cool rating. So that's not a lot of time because these aren't exactly the longest songs in the world. I managed to pull it off on stage 5, which is the I really need to go to the bathroom song. For lack of a better term, I don't remember what it's actually called. But yeah, but had almost no time to spare, but I did pull it off. That was, my heart was racing on that one. But yeah, really memorable experience, as you can tell, getting the platinum trophy on Parappa the Rapper. And I will say, even though it was janky, it did make me like the game a little bit more. Number 30, Spider-Man Remastered on the PlayStation 4. This is, or really the PS5. I got this one on July 31st, 2023. This is kind of like what I did with God of War in 2022. I went through the two. I mean, it wasn't like a huge task, but I went through the two Spider-Man games in the lead up to Spider-Man 2 in 2023. Now, obviously, I played the original version of Spider-Man immediately when it came out in 2018. I was super excited for it. I grew up a huge Spider-Man fan, but I didn't really care about trophies back then, as we've discussed. So even though everyone and their mother has the platinum trophy in Spider-Man, I actually don't still to this day have the one in the PS4 version. But when I went back and played the PS5 version last year, I did, of course, get it. It's obviously a very achievable and fun platinum trophy, but I will say it's very repetitive, particularly with where you have to 100% every district. So that's like requires you to do all the random crimes in these districts, and it gets old pretty fast, and so that's why it's as low as it is on my list. It's a fun game. I don't think I like it quite the Spider-Man games quite as much as a lot of people do. Although they're undeniably great, but yeah, that one I'm gonna put at number 30, and at number 29, I am gonna give Miles Morales the edge. Got that one on October 2nd, 2023. This is another one that I played right at launch, but I didn't get the platinum at that one, even though I was in trophies at that time. I got all of the trophies except for it does require you to replay the game on New Game Plus for the platinum. I don't really like it when games do that, but so yeah, I was like, well, it's okay. I'm just gonna do everything else, and then someday I'm sure I'll replay this game and I'll get the platinum trophy. That's exactly what I did. I almost put it below Spider-Man 1 due to that requirement, because it did like double well, not really double, because the second time you go through it a lot faster, you don't have to do a lot of the side stuff. But I did give it the edge just because at least it doesn't require you to slog through all those random crimes to complete the district. So yeah, I gave it the edge here at number 29. I will say that the Never Saw It Coming trophy, where it requires you to complete an enemy base without being detected. So you got to stealth your way through it. That was a nice little challenge. Memorable trophy there. Number 28 then is The Last of Us Part 2. I earned this one on July 20th, 2020. Talked about this one earlier, so not a whole lot more to add here. Obviously, I love this game. It's very high on my personal top 25 games of all time, which you can hear in last week's episode of Controlled Burns. But the trophy list itself is not anything to really write home about. It's basically get all the collectibles, which is kind of a pain. And even though it is a lot easier to do in part two than The Last of Us Part One, or sorry, I shouldn't say The Last of Us Part One because it's a completely different trophy list. Just The Last of Us, and Last of Us Remastered, PS3 and PS4 versions. It's actually impossible to get the Platinum Trophy today on the PS3 version because they have closed the online servers, and it does require you to spend some time in the online mode. So for Last of Us 1, I'm actually still working on that one. But Last of Us Part 2, got it just about a month after the game released. Masterpiece of a game, not a masterpiece of a trophy list. So number 27, I'm giving it to Spider-Man 2. Got this one on October 26, 2023, just about a week after the game released. It's definitely the best of the Spider-Man games, I feel, and I do think it was the best trophy list as well, because it didn't require you to do as many grindy districts like you had to do in the first one. I will say, I was playing this game right at launch, and it was surprisingly buggy at launch, so that might have detracted from my experience a little bit. But still a really great game. The Soar trophy that requires you to glide from like one end of the map to the other, basically, that was really cool. It was a fun little challenge there. Definitely the best completionist experience in the Spider-Man games, but it doesn't really go above and beyond for a trophy list, I must say. So number 26 here, we have Mass Effect 3 Legendary Edition. I got this one on January 29th, 2022. I liked this one better than the Mass Effect 1 list, and that's mostly because it did actually require me to do something that I'd never done before, which was specifically get into the arena on the Citadel and do some battles there for the one and only trophy. Now you would think that that would just be kind of tedious, but it doesn't make you do that for too long. And I actually thought it was kind of cool. It was kind of a fun little challenge that they added there. And I love the Citadel in Mass Effect. I mean, who doesn't? But other than that, it was very similar to Mass Effect 1. Just kind of some combat related trophies again and basically do everything in the game. Lots of fun, nothing particularly noteworthy, but I did give it a little bit of a bump there because it did result in me experiencing something that I wouldn't otherwise have experienced. So good on you, Mass Effect 3. That's what you want. Number 25 then is Fallout 4. I got this one on, believe it or not, June 21st, 2023. So hey, that's one of my longest trophies to earn, given I played this game on launch night. It took me 7 years and 7 months to get the platinum trophy on that one. Now, the main barrier here was the trophy called Benevolent Leader. This is a buggy trophy that requires you to reach maximum happiness in quote unquote a large settlement, but I don't even know if that's what that means. Like I've seen that people can get it in any settlement. So, who knows? I'm still a little bit in the dark on this one. But I finally got that trophy. It was like the only trophy I didn't have in the base game. During a playthrough last year with my wife Reagan, where she actually kind of got into the base building stuff. She like enjoyed that, and so yeah, I was like, well, fuck, let's see if we can get a settlement to max happiness. So we got a nice cat collection and restaurant collection going on in Sanctuary, which is the first settlement in the game, and we did finally get it to 100%, and I got the platinum trophy. It was a really cool moment. Definitely put the cap on that one after, as I mentioned, almost 8 years since that game came out. Um, I wish I could put this trophy list a little bit higher. Overall, it's a great time. I really like Bethesda games in general, but I really like the way that they approach trophy lists in general. I think they're actually some of the best in the industry, but yeah, that one problematic trophy was such a pain, and so many people struggle with it and spend hours trying to get this one trophy that I couldn't really put it any higher than number 25. This experience did make me want to get into 76 because that's the one 3D Fallout game that I haven't really been able to get into. But the idea of getting the platinum trophy in it does entice me a lot more. And Tree Trunk Sean's just a huge fan of 76. I think it's actually his favorite Fallout game now, which is crazy. Maybe he'll talk about that if we can get him on the podcast soon. But yeah, it does make me want to get into the game. But that does seem like a huge task getting the platinum trophy in that game, I must say. So we'll see. But number 24 now, I'm going to give it to Spyro 2, Ripto's Rage, Reignited. Got this one on June 13th, 2020. I'm giving this one the edge over Fallout just because, you know, it's just really satisfying to 100% those Spyro games. Spyro 2, I'm having at the low end of the Spyro trilogy just because it is, in my opinion, the weakest in the series. And also, it was actually a bit buggy at launch. I remember there was like one particular area. I don't really want to get into the weeds here on it, but there was basically an area that was bugged, and I had to kind of jank my way around this area because it just wasn't. It was just bugging out on me. In general, I will say I'm not a huge. I was pretty disappointed by the Reignited collection. There were bugs. There was just a clear lack of polish when it came to animation work in particular. I thought there was really just a lack of attention to detail in these games that I think failed to ultimately recapture the magic of the original. So that was a huge disappointment, especially given how excited I was to play them. But yeah, Spyro 2, I'm putting it at number 24 because even at the end of the day, it is still a fun game to complete. Number 23, then I'm going to put Mass Effect 2 Legendary Edition. This earned date was August 29th, 2021. This is basically the same trophy experience as the others in the series, but I'm giving this one the edge because it did create a memorable moment when my wife managed to guide the team through the suicide run without losing anyone, which made for a killer, trophy pop moment. So that was really fun. It's also I don't think you're gonna get a whole lot of argument about Mass Effect 2 being the best in the series. So what are you gonna say? I'm putting it at the top end of the Mass Effects for the trophy list. Number 22, I'm putting Sly 2 Band of Thieves. Got this one on May 21st, 2020. Pretty much got the platinum on this one without even trying. As I mentioned earlier, I actually found all the clue bottles on my own during my playthrough in April 2020. That was really fun. I remember actually like turning off the music in those hubs and kind of listening for the bottles because they kind of make like a little dinking sound because they're kind of bouncing. And that was actually really cool. I was doing that even with just kind of on the cusp of me getting into platinum trophies. I don't think I was doing it for the trophies. I think I was doing it just to do it. But I did have to go back in and clean up some stuff. Specifically, I had to buy 3 of those skills that I mentioned before. So I just had to grind up some coins and buy those from the store. But yeah, Sly 2, man. Awesome PS2 classic, a great completion experience. Really got nothing bad to say about that trophy list. Number 21, I'm going to have God of War Ragnarok. I got this one December 1st, 2022. So that's within a month of the game coming out. Obviously, the epic conclusion to my God of War run that took place throughout 2022. It probably would have, well, I already mentioned that it would have resulted in more platinums, but I play the PSP versions for the PSP games, and then I didn't want to do multiple playthroughs of 1 and 2. But Ragnarok is my favorite game in the God of War series. I think the completion experience, however, did have some issues. Specifically, the level design, I had some problems with where you weren't sure about where you could go and where you couldn't go at various stages of the game. Like once you finish it, of course, everything's unlocked. But I was kind of trying to get through, trying to 100% everything as I went, and that led to some issues where I felt like I should be able to go to certain areas and I couldn't. And so there was like I wasted a lot of time doing that. And that was a pain. And then there was other stuff like you would unlock some of these like extra boss fights with like these dead king guys that were kind of too hard for you at that stage in the game. Like you really realistically didn't have the gear to or the level or whatever you want to call it, and the weird RPG systems that they put into the modern God of War games to really beat them. So that kind of led to some annoyance where I would go out of my way to start these fights and then just to find out, oh, I can't do this yet. So a lot of these issues were probably exacerbated by the fact that I was playing this game immediately. Information on the internet was kind of few and far between at that time. Um, and that's kind of the price you pay for playing a game really early. But other than those qualms, which may probably sound like nitpicks to people that are big fans of Ragnarok, I mean it's a phenomenal game, and I do look forward to going back and because I don't have the 100% now because of the roguelike mode that they added. I haven't really got into that or even tried that yet, but I am interested in it, and I hear that it kind of pays off all the other God of War games, which is very cool, given that I've taken the time to go through them. So I'll have to check that out. Number 20 here, I'm going to have Ghosts of Tsushima. So I got this one on August 4th, 2020. This was kind of a fun memento of my first year as a trophy hunter, which was 2020. And what an incredible year for gaming and PlayStation in particular. They were killing it in 2020. I think that's still my favorite gaming year to this day, which, maybe that'll be a future episode of the podcast. But this is just an example of basically what I call a resistance-free platinum. Just complete the game and have fun. That's just all this trophy list is about. I will say I'm working on getting the uh PS5 version of this trophy, and planning on going back and doing the Iki Island DLC, which I have not done, because it wasn't out when I played the game, and you know when it came out in 2020. Uh, but yeah, it was really fun platinum. I will say that in this replay of Ghost of Tsushima, it's maybe lost a little bit of its luster for me. It's a beautiful game, but it is also a fairly boilerplate open world checklisty game. But I like those, so I'm enjoying that experience and looking forward to Ghost of Yote when that comes out next year. Number 19 here is Spyro the Dragon, which I got on November 15th, 2018. I think it's about 2, maybe 3 days after the Reignited trilogy came out. As I noted at the top, this was my first platinum trophy. Pretty apropos given my history with the Spyro series. Um, I mentioned it's probably the second or third game I ever 100%ed as a kid. Um, let's see. What do I want to say about Spyro 1 that I haven't already? Um, I will say that I probably could have gotten the speed run in this one at the time, and maybe even could have been one of the because another thing that the PSN profiles measures is the first 50 people to get a platinum trophy, which would have been cool to be on that list. And I know that I could have speedrun this game because I actually did on my wife's account. Even though you can't once you have a trophy on your account, you can't start over. It's one shot because once you have a trophy, like the clock is ticking, right? Before you complete it. But on my wife's account, I actually went through this year. This is another one that I streamed on YouTube. You can watch it on Wildfire Gaming's account. And I ran through the game as fast as I could to get the platinum trophy on her account, and it took me 3 hours and 17 minutes, so just about 10 minutes longer than Jack and Daxter. And that put me at number 19 on PSN profile. So I do plan on doing the other two Spyros, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. I will say that, I mentioned earlier that I was kind of hard on the Reignited trilogy. But I will say that Spyro 1 is probably the only one that I think was a net improvement over the original, thanks to Reignited. The controls are probably overall better. Obviously, visually, it's better than it was on the PlayStation 1. And I think it's pretty clear this is where the majority of the development time and effort went of the trilogy, which I don't like that they didn't spend more time on the other two games. But hey, at least Spyro 1 is a pretty great experience. So that takes me to number 18, where I'm putting Spyro Year of the Dragon, which I got on December 17th, 2018, which is a surprisingly long time given how excited I was for the remake. But I probably took my time with this one because I didn't want it to end, and Spyro 3 is my favorite. And also, I was probably at this point feeling a little bit disappointed about the overall quality of the remakes. Sadly, Spyro 3 did not receive the polish that the original did from the developer Toys for Bob, but Spyro 3 is just so obviously the best that I had to give it the edge on my trophy ranking. I couldn't put the original above it. So here it is at number 18. A few games are as dear to me as Spyro Year of the Dragon. It's a shame, really, that the remake couldn't do it justice. So number 17 now is one of my most recent platinums earned on July 21st, 2024. This is Octopath Traveler 2. It took me over a year, really, to complete this game from when I got my first trophy to when I got the last one on July 21st. It's another one where there's not a whole lot to it other than completing the game, but this game is just so damn great. And the completionist experience is just so grand that I couldn't put it any lower. there was a couple standouts. I remember the Octopath Traveler, like with a question mark, Octopath Traveler, trophy requires you to bring along four townspeople at once. So it's basically you run around with an eight-person party, which looks ridiculous because normally you only have four of the eight main characters with you at a time. So it's kind of a nice joke trophy. Knocking out 100 townspeople was less fun. I remember going around and kind of grinding that one out. But and there's no trophy for it, but I still have this game and I'm playing it on PS5 because the developers added these extra battles in the post game, which they did not add trophies for it, but I just want to have them checked off, and I've done three of the four. But this last one I still haven't been able to pull off, and they're just so crazy tough. They're the hardest turn-based battles I've ever seen in any game like this, but so satisfying to complete. So still working on that one. But Octopath Traveler 2, masterpiece of a game. Obviously, you heard where it was if you go back and listen to the last episode where I talked about it on my top 25. Um, but yeah, I love that game and certainly recommend getting the platinum in it. So number 16 and 15 are basically going to be the same here on the list because they're both Jack and Daxter for the PS3 and 4. Got the PS3 version on May 22nd, 2020, and the PS4 version on August 30th, 2020. Not much more to say about this one. The versions are basically the exact same trophy list, so essentially they're a tie. I'll give the edge to the PlayStation 3 version just because I do think it is the better port over the PS4 version. Although really the best way to play those games is on the original hardware on the PlayStation 2. You can actually watch my stream playthrough on the PS4 version where I did my speed run on Wildfire Gaming. I think I mentioned that already. I do that one again sometime on my wife's account as well, just like I did on the Spyro games. But yeah, we've said all we need to say about Jack and Daxter. So let's go into number 14. Now, this is where we start getting into like I would say the truly great platinum trophies that require you to go above and beyond and have some kind of unique experiences that you wouldn't have otherwise if you weren't going for the trophies. And this is maybe one of the most unique experiences I've had. This is Battlefield Bad Company 2 on the PlayStation 3. I earned this one on November 11th, 2023, just a few days before the servers were shut down by EA. One hell of a unique experience. So I had never played a Battlefield game going into this. And so obviously I did not play this at the time. I'm way after the fact playing this in 2023. I picked both of the Bad Company games up at my local game exchange here in Greenville, Texas, and I saw that EA was shuttering the server. So I decided to look into the trophy lists. And I always heard that these were some of the best Battlefield games, and so I was like, why not give it a shot? Bad Company 1, though, as I was looking at the trophy list, I could tell that was just not going to happen. The trophy roadmap was a nightmare, and so I pretty quickly wrote that one off. Although I did play through the campaign just to kind of get a feel for what the game was like, and especially since 2 is a sequel. But Bad Company 2 looked doable. Basically, you just had to do everything in the campaign, which that's no problem. And then just get to rank 22 online and unlock three weapons in each of the four classes. So that's basically just play them enough to unlock those through XP. So, I was like, you know what? Let's go for it. This is gonna be a new experience for me. Now, obviously, I was in there against some hardcore vets. Basically, everybody that was in there was either a trophy hunter or they were just people that have been playing Bad Company since it came out, and they were getting their last few months in with the game, and so I had a tough time coming up against those guys. It could be a little bit tough, particularly in the beginning, where I was just totally out of my depth. But I never really got frustrated because as long as I was making trophy progress, I didn't care whether I won or lost. And boy, did I take more L's than W's in that in that process. I can promise you. I remember there was like this one time where I was just going one on one with this guy because there was depending on when you played, yeah, I kind of tried to do these on the weekends, make progress on the weekends because during the week, you'd have a lower player pool. And I remember there was this one situation where I was just one on one with this guy, and he was trying to prevent me from blowing up like this objective. And he must have killed me like 20 times, right? Damn near unanswered. Maybe I got him a couple times, but he was killing me left and right. But I had so many lives because they give you enough lives. They didn't adjust the lives that I had based on the fact that it was just me on the team. Like they give you because I had like my whole team's worth of laps, right? So all I had to do was get past him, and I was like, I'm gonna see if I can pull this off. So I did manage to get past him. I set the timer on the bomb a couple times, but he would come back in and kill me. But there was this wall that I hid behind this last time. So I set the charge, hid behind this wall. He came around, getting ready to turn it off, and I blasted him with this shotgun. and killed his ass and got the W. So that must have been frustrating for him, but sure satisfying for me as a memorable experience with that platinum. But overall, it's just really fun because it didn't. There's moments like that, right, where I was just kind of playing it legit, which is mostly I did play legit, I will say, to get this platinum trophy. But it also invited collaboration with strangers that were also going for their platinums. We'd message each other on the PlayStation, the crappy PlayStation 3 messaging infrastructure, and I met a lot of cool people doing this. The I got acquainted with most of the names that you would see, whether they were veterans or the trophy hunters. And I've got 117 friends right now on PlayStation, and the majority of them are people that I played this game with from the PlayStation 3. So I really look back on this fondly, even though, realistically, I think the game itself is just north of fine. Like I didn't think that the campaign was very good at all. But there was some fun to be had in that online. I don't know that it was something that I really needed to just sink a bunch of time into in 2023, but I did. And you know what? I had a good time. So number 13 now, I'm gonna put Psychonauts, the original. I got this one on May 12th, 2021. I think this was another one where I was playing through the original in anticipation of Psychonauts 2, but it was also just kind of a big bucket list game for me. It was one that I played as a kid but never finished. There were some frustrating points for getting the platinum in this one, particularly since the main collectible in the game, the figments, they're easy to miss, which they did kind of fix for Psychonauts 2. They're a lot more vibrant, I would say. But in Psychonauts 1, it's very easy to miss them, particularly in some of the brighter stages. There's also this other trophy called I Love Punching, where it's just this like punching mini game that was a huge pain. But really, the rewards for getting 100% in this game are worth it. You get like all these different powers that you wouldn't otherwise get in the game. So it's really cool how they reward you in gameplay. It's not just you completing it for the sake of completing it. So that's a really nice touch. I also will note that the trophy list it's just full of these little jokes and character interactions that you would just never see if you didn't go out of your way to see them. And it really made me appreciate just the quirky magic of that game and all the little secrets that there are to find, even if they're not related to completion in any way. I played through the game again this year with my wife after we watched the Psych Odyssey documentary, and I got 100% in it again just for the hell of it, just because I really think it's a satisfying experience. And you know what? I liked it even more the second time. So Psychonauts, I'm putting it here at number 13. Really great trophy list. And then number 12, I mentioned this one already, but Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled. I got this one on June 3rd, 2020. So definitely one of the toughest ones in my collection, as I mentioned earlier, because of the Oxide time trials. They are no joke. I had never beaten Oxide in the original. My brother had actually. He had gone and beaten all the time the hard time trials on the PlayStation 1. But I did do it here. Even though you have to do it for basically double the tracks here because they added all the tracks from Crash and Nitro Kart, which was a really nice touch. Um, but yeah, the thing is, my skills, because I would play this game intermittently with my brother throughout my life, my skills never really got rusty, and so they did translate to the PlayStation 4 version, and I was able to get through it without too much trouble. The Dragon Mines track was the one that was the toughest one for me. Um, but yeah, I'm really got a lot of fond memories for the original and the remake. The original was one of the few games that my stepdad got into. He actually 100% of the game multiple times on my brother's copy of the game, so that was really cool. In the remake, the inclusion of the Crash Nitro Kart tracks, which was the sequel on the PlayStation 2, which that game was nowhere near as good as the original. It wasn't developed by Naughty Dog, but adding all those tracks, that was a nice touch, and of course being able to play online, like that was just a dream. That we certainly would have loved to have been able to do back in the day. So my brother in particular, he did it a lot more than I did. He really, I mean, he's got like over 200 hours in Nitro Kart, most of that playing online. So he was like probably one of the best. But yeah, just a great. That's an example of a great remake. Unlike the kind of shoddy one that Toys for Bob did for Spyro. This is an example of a remake from a team, Beanox, that really obviously cared about the game, and that showed in their work. So number 11 here, I'm putting Astro's Playroom. I got this one on November 22nd, 2020. I took my time with this one, and by that I mean it took me a week and a half to earn it because I just didn't want it to end, man. I've been playing the PlayStation from the beginning, and I grew up with 3D platformers, so this game could not have been more geared toward me. It was a magical first experience to have with the PlayStation 5. not only is the completion experience in this game fun, but the trophy list is full of just these little in jokes and references to PlayStation history, lots of fun interactions in the hub and the museum area. Just an amazing time. I loved every second of it. I'm working my way now through Astro Bot, which is the new game from Team Asobi and the kind of the main Astro game. And I fully expect to have that platinum by the end of the year. So that I'm having a great time doing that one as well. But Astros player, and that was my introduction to this series, and just really, really loved it. Number 10, then getting into the top 10 favorite trophy list here with Spiritfarer, which I got just a couple days ago, October 12th, 2024. So obviously it's my most recent platinum. Though it was really, like I mentioned earlier, replicating my basically 100% run through the game that I did on Xbox in 2020, which was the year it came out. I did. I will note that they did add some characters and stuff. There was some content in the game that I didn't see my first time through because they just hadn't added that yet when I played it in 2020. So that was kind of cool, like having some extra content to go through here on the PlayStation version. It took us. I did this fully co-op with my wife, and it took us a whopping 2.5 years to get through Spiritfarer because it was something that we started in 2022, and then. Yeah, because I bought it because I loved it. I really liked it on the Xbox. And then I was like, this is something that my wife would enjoy. And I found out that it was actually a co-op game that we could play together on the couch. So I bought it to play with her. And it was just something that we would just kind of dip into every few months. But it's a beautiful experience both times. A hell of a satisfying game to complete. I really hate this word, but there's just better. There's no other way really to say it. But sailing around this game's world with your spirit buddies on your boat that you built yourself, it's a vibe, man. It's just so cool and fun to do. Great game for couples to play together, and I think it's got some important life lessons as well. I do think that the writing gets a little bit melodramatic, but there is a great central lesson, I guess, if you will, or theme about letting go that I think really, if you're a fan of these kinds of sort of farmy type games. And even if you're not, because this game really kind of mixes in some other elements as well. I think anybody should give that game a shot. It's really something special. Number 9 now is Fallout 3. So this is I got the earn date on this one is August 1st, 2024. So that was this year. So no question the platinum that took me the longest to earn. So I mentioned at the jump, there's no way for me to know exactly how long this took because most of my Fallout 3 trophies don't even have dates. But it was probably close to 15 years, definitely more than a decade in the making for this one. Obviously, the PS3 version of Fallout 3 is basically the worst version that you can play, but I will say it works a lot better than it gets credit for. It's definitely way, 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 way better than the buggy mess that was the New Vegas version on PS3, which was just awful. I mentioned earlier, I think that the Bethesda games are some of the most satisfying to complete, and this platinum just encourages you to do more things in the world. One of the things that I hadn't done until I did it this year was like visit 100 locations. So it's just really cool to incentivize you to go out of your way to explore, kill all the super mutant behemoths. Like that's kind of a fun little challenge to go out of your way to do. Obviously, do every quest, make all of the craftable weapons, which there aren't that many. So it's just a fun way to encourage experimentation with these extra weapons that they put in the game. Playing through it multiple times with the different karmic values. Just a great trophy list all around. And then I have the Game of the Year edition, so the DLC trophies are in there as well. They're not required for the platinum, but they also led to some memorable experiences. I remember particularly when I was a kid, getting all of the steel ingots in the pit. And remember, this is years before I even cared about trophies. I just did it for fun. I pulled up a guide and was like, I'm gonna go through and get all these. This is a really atmospheric area in the pit, which is my favorite DLC of Fallout, and just getting all the steel ingots in this kind of scary area, kind of a horror style area. It was really fun. And then getting all the alien recordings from the mothership when you get abducted by aliens, like that was really fun and a cool bit of lore for that section of the game. And again, that was something else that I did when I was a kid, just for the hell of it. I still don't quite have a full 100% on this game. I am missing 2 trophies, which is just reaching level 30, which is the level cap if you have the DLC, with neutral and good karma. So it's funny that the one that I have is for bad karma. But I do want to get those just to get the nice round 100%. And I do kind of have a playthrough. I haven't gone back to it in a couple months, but I do sort of have an ongoing playthrough, obviously, given that I got this the platinum in August 1st. So I kind of still have that run going where I'm doing the one of the DLCs right now, the Point Lookout DLC, which I'm not really crazy about, but that's kind of what I'm doing right now. But yeah, so I do want to get to level 30 on with neutral good karma. I'll just save scum that. But I will say, after that, I'll probably be hanging up the PS3 version for good because now I have a Series X and it's like just obviously the best way to play that game, no question. Way, way better than on the PlayStation 3. So this is kind of my last run on the PlayStation 3. A great swan song and a hell of a run for one of my favorite games of all time. Number 8. Now we're gonna say Final Fantasy 8 remastered. I did not line that up just because they're both eights. I did just now realize that I did that, but got this one on March 24th, 2022. So I got the platinum on my first run of this game, and I wouldn't trade it. I cracked this sucker open like an egg thanks to all the exploitability of the junction system, and I had this great guide that was kind of showing me how to just break the game. I didn't even do half of what it recommended. They were way out of control with the amount of ways they were saying that you could break the game. It was like would have taken way too much time. But basically, the ability to convert cards into spells. I'm not going to get into the weeds here. If you're a Final Fantasy VIII fan, you know what I'm talking about. And if you're not, then this probably all sounds like gibberish. But you can do that and just totally break the game right at the beginning. You can be like one-shotting bosses, no problem. It was a lot of fun. Very unique experience. Unlike any other Final Fantasy game or JRPG in general, just a completely unique experience. You got to give Final Fantasy VIII credit for that one. Um, yeah, the platinum trophy itself just basically just you didn't even really have to get broken for it. It's just something that I did, but you do have to just experience everything the game has to offer, get all of the junctions, all of the GFs as they call them. So basically all the summons, and then doing all the side quests and stuff. And boy, did I ever! I did all that stuff and had a great time. I do think Final Fantasy VIII is the worst of the PlayStation trilogy of Final Fantasy games 7, 8, 9, but it's still a very special experience, very unique experience that I cherish. So number 7 now, this is Doom from 2016 from id Software. I got this one on August 16th, 2020. Definitely an odd choice for one of my earliest platinums. I was really not a huge, this was my second playthrough of the game, and really wasn't crazy about it the first time. And I don't have any attachments to Doom. I never played the originals or anything like that. But I think the idea was that I wanted to play through this one and then play through Eternal. But that didn't end up happening. I didn't actually get through Eternal because I actually kind of derailed that playthrough because I was kind of trying to do it on this mode where you could run out of lives, and I ran into some trouble with that because it was my first time through, and that game was way harder than I expected it to be after doing Doom 1. So anyway, that's neither here nor there, but Doom 1, this is probably the game that I would say was maybe most enhanced by going through it with trophies because, like I said before, I played through it in 2018 for the first time and liked it okay, but wasn't like in love with it. But yeah, playing through it with the trophies, that was awesome. And it was a really credit to the quality of that trophy list. It basically requires you to find every secret, which is really fun to do in that game with the way that the level design works and to pull up a guide and do everything. And you're rewarded in gameplay for doing that. You get more powerful. And you upgrade all the weapons and stuff. That was really fun. But beyond that, just it requires you to dabble in the other modes. So the multiplayer mode and then the snap map mode, which was kind of like a ability to create your own Doom levels, which is a cool idea. I don't think it really took off, but you just had to dip your toe into those. Like you had to make a snap map and go through the tutorial for snap map and play some snap maps that people had posted online. And then like multiplayer, you had to get to like level 5 or something like that, where it was like super achievable. And just give you a look. It was like, hey, here's the other things that you can do in this game. Feel free to dive into it if you feel like it. And I didn't. I ended my experience there, but it did make me kind of appreciate. Oh, it's kind of cool that there's these other aspects of the game that you can get into. So I think that's just exactly what you want from a trophy list is encourage people to experiment with modes or different aspects of your game that maybe they wouldn't otherwise. So really great trophy list for Doom. I really really love that experience. Okay, moving on now to number 6. We're getting into the big ones now, and this is Deathloop, which I got on September 18th, 2023. What an experience this was. This was another one that was dramatically improved, I would say, by the inclusion of trophies. There's so many memories I look back on With this one, I mean, some of the standouts was winning Charlie Montague's game, doing trick shots with all the different abilities that you have to do for the trophies, killing the targets in specific and super fun and creative ways. You got to kill three targets at this party that's in the late game without getting spotted. It was crazy tough, but man, was it satisfying to pull off. Hunting down the naked character on every map, speed running the Wingies, engaging with the really interesting multiplayer component, and then of course the coup de grace, pulling or killing all of the targets. You had to kill all of the assassination targets without killing anybody else. And I managed to pull that off on my first full run of completing the loop where you kill everybody, and I managed to do it all in one run where I killed all the targets, didn't kill anybody else, got the platinum trophy. Well, not that wasn't my platinum trophy, but I got like the big trophy, like that's like the hardest trophy in the game. Man, what a feeling it was to like to pull that off on my first run. It was absolutely incredible. Definitely one of my all-time great trophy moments, maybe even number one. And based on everything I'm saying here, I kind of want to put this even higher than I have here at number six. But the problem with that is just the game is just it really is held back by just some awful game breaking bugs that really did hamper my experience at times. It's super disappointing that they were never fixed because I was playing this 2 years after it was released. You could get stuck in the menus very often, and there was like times where I shouldn't have been spotted, but I was. There was just some annoying stuff that really did hamper my experience at times. But other than that, it really was just a playthrough that I'm going to cherish. It was a fantastic game overall, and I cannot imagine ever playing this game again and having as good of a time as I did with this one. This was my first time playing the game. This was my first time playing a game from that studio. And I'd never really played anything like it, so it's just a phenomenal experience that I certainly wouldn't trade. Strongly recommend going for the trophies if you get into Deathloop. Number five then is Elden Ring. I got this one on November 6th, 2022. This was another amazing experience. I got this one all in one run, and I really went above and beyond. I didn't just do everything you needed for the trophies. I combed those maps for everything that you could do, every optional boss, dungeon, cave, tomb, whatever. I beat it and I explored it. There's not a whole lot to say beyond that in terms of Elden Ring. I did talk about the game. It is on my top 25 games of all time. You can go back to last week's episode to hear that discussion, but it is just a magical experience from beginning to end. I'm really excited to I did start up a second playthrough now here in 2024 because I do want to play through it again and go through the new DLC. But I was just a little bit disappointed that they didn't add any additional trophies on that one. But hey, Elden Ring, just a phenomenal experience. Nothing bad to say about that trophy. Let's just do everything in the game, and boy, is it fun to do. Number four now is God of War from 2018. I got this one on November 6th, 2022, just a few days before Ragnarok came out. It's gonna be tough. You'll to top November 6th. You'll notice that is the day I got the Elden Ring and God of War trophy. So pretty great day there for trophy hunting. But yeah, this is uh, I do like Ragnarok a little bit better in terms of overall game, but this is for sure the best trophy list in the series. I really have no complaints with it whatsoever. I love just ringing this game for absolutely everything it had, going around in the lake and doing everything there was to do, checking out all the different gear and beating all the enemies and whatnot, doing all the quests. It was just and then there was the bonus areas in hell, and then there was like the mist world that you had to go through. It was kind of like almost like a roguelike type thing, probably a little bit of a test run for what they ultimately did with Ragnarok. Um, just a lot of fun. By the time and I was like so like I'm out of practice now. I would definitely have to get back into the swing of things, but my skills were razor sharp at that time to the point where when I got to that last Valkyrie fight that everybody Sigrun that everybody talks about as being like really tough, I'd beat her ass on my first try. It was a close battle, but I did beat her on my first try. It was incredibly satisfying to pull that off. Now, as I mentioned, I think Ragnarok is probably the better game as a whole. It definitely has a better story, I think, and a fuller and more rich story, I would say. But in terms of the platinum experience, yeah, it doesn't hold a candle to God of War 2018. It was a really great experience. Number three then is the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. I got this one on November 17th, 2020. This capped off basically not quite a decade, but I mean, it's been a decade that I spent with Skyrim now. I think I probably started playing it in 2013, 2014 or so. but yeah, it really capped off all the time that I'd spent with Skyrim. I got the full 100% too, so that includes like all the DLC trophies, which basically requires you to get to level 80 or so that you can kill a legendary dragon. And I even like went above and beyond and got to the point, I think it's like level 88 where the Ebony Warrior spawns, and I spawned him and beat his ass. It was something I never thought I would ever do in Skyrim, but I did. Um, I probably have 1,000+ hours in Skyrim, and it was crazy. The things that I hadn't done before getting the PS4 version. One in particular was the Civil War subplot. I never went through that on the PlayStation 3, which seems crazy, but it's true. I only did that on the PS4 version. There's not a second of the time that I spent playing for the platinum on this game that I didn't enjoy, which basically means there's not a second of playing Skyrim I didn't enjoy. It's truly a magical game, and I love it to this day. And I was thrilled about the PS5 version of the game that came out in 2021 because that means that there's another trophy list for me to go out and play through. I mean, I have started it, but I haven't quite gotten that platinum yet. So my days in Skyrim are not over. But I think so. I'll definitely be getting the PS5 version of that platinum trophy. But yeah, just a phenomenal time. I strongly recommend getting the platinum trophy in Skyrim. So number two now. This is one of the more recent ones again. Got this one on September 22nd, 2024. This is Chained Echoes. So it's really cool to have a game that I finished so recently, so high up on the list. But Chained Echoes, it really deserves it. It's amazing how much the developer, which is because this game is really just developed by one guy, he had some help for some specific tasks, I think. But in terms of the writing and everything that the content of the game, it was Matthias Linda that created this thing, and the amount of stuff that he packed into the game, particularly with like the secrets, it really reminded me of the great JRPGs of old, like your Final Fantasy sixes and your Chrono Trigger. They just those games just had such a mystery and secrets in their world, and I think Chained Echoes really did a good job of capturing that. And then the game is also just kind of a completionist dream because there's this they implemented this thing called the reward board. So it's basically something that persists throughout the entire game. It's just a giant linking board that you can pull up in the menus. It's just got over 120 items. I think it's even over 130. It's like 130 something items that all link together that give you rewards for basically just doing everything there is to do in the game. Then they're kind of organized in terms of areas in the game that you go to. Just a phenomenal idea. I've never seen it replicated in any other game that I've played, but I hope it's an idea that really takes off because it's such a great idea for completionists. So this is another one that, I kind of play this concurrently with Octopath Traveler 2. I talk about this in because both games are my top 25 games of all time. Again, you can go back and listen to that episode that I posted last week. But this is just a trophy hunting experience that I'll cherish for a lifetime. Chained Echoes. If you play this game, you're really cheating yourself out of an amazing experience if you don't go for the platinum. And that brings us to my number one, my favorite platinum trophy list that I have to date, and that is Bloodborne, which I got on April 10th, 2021. There could be no other. Bloodborne is obviously a very special game to me. It's number 5 on my all-time list. You can hear my discussion about why I love the game so much on the top 25 episode. But that final run where I just did everything there is for the trophies, that was almost exactly 3 years after my first run, which was in March 2018. So it was the perfect cap on that experience. The big standout here that I never would have done if not for trophies was going into the Chalice dungeons. These are basically bonus dungeons that are completely separate from the main game, but they do offer their own unique bosses and challenges and level designs and even lore that you really need to experience to fully grasp the full story and picture of Bloodborne. So I've played through the game many times, but I had never experienced the Chalice dungeons except for on this run, and I really enjoyed it. There's definitely the hardest thing that I had to do in that game was in the Chalice dungeons where I had to beat the amygdala boss with half health. That is still one of the toughest challenges I've ever faced as a trophy hunter. Not quite maybe on the level of Star Wars Racer Revenge, but it was up there. And then I will say that capping off this run was the my final trophy that I got, which I think was the kind of the perfect last trophy to get, which was the Yarnum Sunrise trophy, which basically you just play the game, but you let Gurman chop your head off and basically wake up from the dream. And it's kind of like basically the good ending for your character. And I never do it because then you miss out on some incredible boss fights, specifically the one with Gurman. But the trophy description kind of says it all, where it says you lived through the sun, or sorry, you lived through the hunt and saw another day. And indeed, I did. I haven't played through Bloodborne again since getting the platinum. I keep trying to convince others in my life to play through it with me co-op, like my friend Chase, my cousin Brett, even Tree Trunk Sean. Um, would love to play through that game with any of those people, but so far no dice. It's hard to justify spending dozens of hours to go through it just by myself when, again, there's so many other games and trophies to experience. But I'll tell you what, if Sony ever decides to print money, do like the most obvious layup of all time, and release a remake or a remaster of Bloodborne, you can bet I'll be there fighting my way through the streets of Yharnam yet again. So that's my top list of my favorite, well, not really my favorite, but all the games that I have a platinum trophy in today as of October 14th, 2024. But there are some other trophy stories that I wanted to share with you all that I think are kind of fun and interesting. So these are obviously for games where I don't have the platinum trophy, and sometimes trophy experiences with games where you don't have the platinum is just as interesting or even more interesting as the ones where you do. So I went through my trophy list last night and was kind of looking at some things and took some notes here. I will say I have Jack and Daxter 3 times, but I don't have Jack 2 or any of the other Jacks at all. I'm really close on the PS3 version of Jack 2. All I have left is getting all of the precursor orbs and grinding out 510 metalhead skull gems. But man, those orbs are just such a pain in the ass. I think probably someday I'll do it, but yeah, I have not done that one. I mentioned earlier that I'm on the cusp of having the platinum trophies in both God of War 1 and 2 on Vita. For one, I need to do a speed run. And then I had to do the stupid challenge thing that I had to do in 3 in those. So they're just a pain in the ass. There's really no great excuse why I haven't done those yet. I just haven't felt like it. And I'm not really crazy about either of those games, but yeah, I'll probably go back and do that at some point. Red Dead Redemption 2, this is a big one of my favorite games of all time, and one of the rarest platinum trophies. It only has a 0.1% completion rating. I do think that this one is achievable for me. I've made a lot of progress with it, and like back whenever I first got into the trophy hunting in 2020, I was making a lot of progress on it. I have more than half of the gold medals that you need from completing the missions with to get the gold trophies, which is or gold medals, which is really hard. So I do think that that's achievable. That's kind of the hardest thing, I guess. But then you also have to scan or inspect or whatever they say, however they word it, and skin like all the animals of the game. So it almost becomes like a Pokemon game where you're like collecting all the creatures in the world. That's a huge undertaking. And then you just have to like 100% the game, do all the quests, like all of the doing all the quests is no problem, but doing like all of like the collection quest. It's a huge undertaking, like finding all the fossils and stuff like that. And like all the legendary fish, and you have to like get these feathers for this guy in Saint Denis. It's crazy the amount of stuff that you have to do to 100% that game. I even have the one of the rarest trophies I have is this one called Grin and Bear it, which is basically let yourself get mauled by a bear 18 times, which is like something you would never do unless you were going for that trophy. And I remember I was like going around in this forest where they spawn, and it was just ridiculous. But it's something it's the kind of things that you do for trophies. So I do think maybe someday I really hope that I will get the platinum trophy in Red Dead Redemption 2. But man, it is a beast. Here's another example. I've done everything there is to do that you can do in Final Fantasy 9, except for the most pain in the ass trophies, which is defeat 10,000 enemies, do the speed run, and then that damn jump rope trophy requiring you to jump over the jump rope 1,000 times without tripping. I just don't think I'm ever gonna do that. I think I gotta draw the line on that one. My brother Brandon actually has the jump rope trophy, and even he doesn't have the platinum, which is absurd. Surely someday he'll get that, but yeah, I just don't think I can force myself to have that miserable of an experience with that damn jump rope. Here's another interesting one. Killzone Mercenary. This is the Killzone game on the Vita. This story is very similar to my Battlefield Bad Company 2 experience, and I actually did the Killzone Mercenary run first. So I had to get all the multiplayer trophies that I needed to secure my ability to get the platinum before the servers closed in, I think this was 2022. Yeah, this was actually kind of my first multiplayer trophy run. Really fun experience, very memorable. I did this over the course of like 3 or 4 days. There was like a week where my wife wasn't around. I can't remember what she was doing, but she wasn't in the house, and I had some time on on my hands, and so I like really did this in like the last week of this game's existence. So I can get the platinum in this, but I still even after even getting all the multiplayer stuff, I have to like clean up some stuff with the single player. It's going to require a kill grind. It's going to require me to play through the game at least 3 more times. So it's man, it is a bitch of a trophy list, but I'll get it one of these days. But what an interesting experience on the online, the final days of Killzone Mercenaries. A lot of funny stuff where like people you had to get through like 100 multiplayer matches. So there were people would do this stuff where like they would kind of tape or what or come up with devise some way to like have the controller stick down where like your guy would just kind of sit there spinning in circles. So if people were just like grinding through matches that way, because otherwise you get booted if you're just idle. And so you would you'd go into these rooms, there'd just be people running around in circles. It was hilarious. There's a really Mr. Grind really did a great video where he captured some of the final moments of that game because he was doing the same thing that I did. So check out that video if you want to see the lunacy that was going on in the final days of Killzone Mercenary. Another interesting one is Blasphemous. So this is a trophy list where I basically have done everything. I'm missing 3 trophies. By the way, this game is a really fantastic Metroidvania. I strongly recommend it if you are into games that are in that genre. I basically messed up 2 of the missable trophies on my first playthrough. And so I do need to go back and do those. So I don't even need to do a full replay of the game. I just have to do a partial playthrough to clean up those 3 trophies. There was one that I couldn't do. It required a replay anyway, so it wasn't the end of the world. And then there's also a speed run trophy, which I did actually. You didn't have to speed run through the whole game. You just had to get through like the first half in 3 hours. And I did. There was a day where I loaded up and ran through it, and it was a lot of fun to do that. Really great game. I love Blasphemous, and I do plan on getting that platinum one of these days. Another one that I'm slowly working on is grinding up my platinum in Ratchet and Clank on the Vita, which it just requires you to grind a truly absurd number of bolts, 100 million bolts to buy everything and then get the bolt collector trophy. So it's just a really slow process. I do make some progress in that game just every time I feel like replaying it, and I'll get that one of these days for sure. And then the last one I want to mention here is Fuser. So this was a game from Harmonix, which is the original creator of the Guitar Hero series. They make a lot of music games. Sadly, they're now like owned by Epic, and they just kind of work on Fortnite stuff. I think they did the Fortnite, whatever that Fortnite music thing is. I don't know. I don't play Fortnite, but they did this game called Fuser, which was like a DJ game where you mix together bits of songs that they included in the game, and just to make your own like ridiculous like mixes. And it was like a lot of fun. You could make these mixes and you could upload them to YouTube, and you could upload them to the online thing in the game where people could view them, and then you could like participate in like festivals and stuff. And then there was like this like freestyle mode online where you could just like each player would just like take their turn and just like make some stuff up, and then like it would go to like the other person. They would like kind of work with what you had set up, or they would just shut it all down and start from scratch. But just really fun for people that are really into music like I am. I can't get the platinum in it sadly, because it was when they announced they were closing the servers, it was basically unobtainable because you had to like spend a certain number of weeks in online mode. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something where you had to like participate in a certain number of festivals or whatever, and there just weren't going to be enough for me to get that trophy, which is a huge shame because otherwise I would easily be able to get this platinum trophy. But even not being able to get the platinum trophy, I was like, I'm just gonna get as many trophies as I can because I really enjoyed playing the game, and so I like grinded up to the level cap online and participated in a lot of those freestyles. This was in December 2022, so it's kind of a fun memory of just like it's Christmas time and I was playing this game whenever I had some spare moments. Really memorable experience, really fun game, and I did make some stuff that I was pretty proud of. A lot of Linkin Park. That I mixed in there, and you can find those. They're actually on uploaded on YouTube. Some of them are on Wildfire Gaming. Some of them are on my own personal YouTube channel. So message me on or shoot me an email on ControlledBurnes with an ES at gmail.com if you wanna hear those, because they were a lot of fun to make. So those are kind of the big trophy stories that I had for you. I guess the last thing before I close it down here, so I just want to kind of be like Babe Ruth here and point at the end of the arena for where I'm going to hit my next home runs. These are the next games that I expect to get the platinum trophies in the weeks and months to come. I would say the top of that list is Star Wars Battlefront 2. This is my next big online trophy experience. I all I have to do, I've done everything there is to do in this game. All I have to do is grind to level 50 and I will have the platinum trophy, which is a great feeling. So I play this game every Tuesday night or Wednesday whenever I have time, because that's whenever you get triple XP. So I just play it during those times and am on my way to grinding up to level 50. Just got, I think I'm on level 43 right now, so just got a few levels left. But that was a really fun experience. Getting the trophies in that one. There was I really liked that it required you to spend some time in the starfighter mode online, the space battles basically. I really had a lot of fun doing those, and like I remember like there was this one in particular that was really tough where you had to defeat 25 hero ships with just a regular ship, and I remember just doing that legit, just fighting people, dogfighting in space, and like every time you would knock one off, I was like, oh man, that's one, that's another one. And I remember I actually have the moment saved on my console where I get the last one. It's just like such a satisfying moment. That's another one of my all-time great trophy pop moments. So that was great. I also expect to have Astrobot by the end of this year. Obviously, I'm playing my way through that, having a phenomenal time. That will definitely be on my trophy list in the near future. I also really want to play through. Obviously, I have the Last of Us Part Two trophies, but I want to get the remastered trophies for the remastered version, and really the Last of Us Part One as well. Both of those I expect to have hopefully within the next year or so. But for Part Two in particular, I'm really looking forward to playing through it with the dev commentary mode that they added. I'm looking forward to starting that up in the next few weeks. So that's gonna be a really fun experience. Psychonauts 2, I started up with Reagan, so I got the platinum in Psychonauts 1, but I don't have the platinum. I had the 100% on Xbox, but I don't have the platinum trophy for that game. And I love that game. You can hear me talk about it on my top 25 games list from last week, but I do expect to have the platinum trophy on that. The Pixel remasters, the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters, I just recently bought. I was so excited to get these on console, and I was waiting a little bit until I was gonna wait until I really was ready to play them, but they were a little on the not much of a sale, but enough of a sale where I was like, ah, what the hell, I'll bite. So I got 1 through 6, and I started up 6. I am gonna play through 6 first because that's obviously my favorite of those original 6. Um, and yeah, I plan on getting the platinum trophy on all of them, but 6 in particular, and then probably 4 after that, and then maybe I'll go through the rest. But yeah, just being having the ability to get the platinum trophies in all those Final Fantasy games, and having these great guides that people have written to specifically go for the platinums. Oh, I just like almost salivate thinking about how fun it's gonna be. Can't wait to do that one. The Outer Worlds. Spacer's Choice Edition I have on the PlayStation 5. I have started this and I'm pretty deep into the game actually. I could finish the game pretty easily, but I'm going through the DLC now, which I've never played before. This is one that I've played a lot on the PlayStation Portal, actually. This is made for a surprisingly fun game to play on the Portal. Um, and this is another one that I originally played on Game Pass on the Xbox, but now I bought it cheap on the PlayStation Store. And yeah, look, I didn't get the 100% on Xbox. It does require a couple of repeat playthroughs, or at least like one other playthrough. But yeah, it's one that you don't really mind playing through because it's kind of more in the Bethesda mold where you kind of want to replay it anyway. So yeah, that's one that I hope to get in the fairly near future. To the Moon, one of my favorite games of all time, was added to the PlayStation Store just this last week. Reagan and I have already played through it. It sadly doesn't have a platinum, but I do expect to go back through it and clean up the last few things I need to get for the 100%. So that'll be a cool one to have on the trophy list, even though it doesn't have a platinum. I wish it did, but I get it because there's not a whole lot of gameplay in To the Moon. But phenomenal game. I cannot recommend it enough. Please play To the Moon if you are listening to this. I'm currently playing through Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Still working on that one. I've been playing through it since the game came out and just chiseling away at it. But that does require a whole other playthrough on hard mode to get the platinum, which I haven't even done in 7 Remake yet, which I certainly expected to have by now. So yeah, I think maybe someday I'll get those, but that's definitely further down the line. And kind of the same situation for Final Fantasy 16, which I played through last year. Loved that game, did everything that you could do, except you do have to do a hard mode playthrough. I do think the 16 one is probably the easiest of the three. So maybe that's the one that I'm most likely to get, but yeah, I gotta go through those. And then of course that brings to mind Final Fantasy VII itself, my number one game of all time. That's a big one. My brother Brandon has that one. It's the only game that he has a platinum trophy in that I don't. But I've actually never experienced some of like the crazy stuff that you can do in that game, like the gold chocobo or getting the Knights of the Round summon. So that should be a fun one to really check off. And then Kingdom Hearts, the final mix. That's another big one that I hope to get someday, but it is a hell of a hill to climb. That's going to require repeat playthroughs and playing on like the harder difficulty. Maybe someday, but wow, that's an intimidating one. Same thing for The Last was one, not Last was Part One, but just the Last was remastered because those online trophies are intimidating. But I have been working on that. I basically I'm almost have everything you need. I'm just missing a couple of shiv doors, so I'm going through that game and trying to get those last shiv doors. But yeah, other than that, it's just gonna be those online trophies. So that should be interesting. Heavy Rain is a big one that's really just a matter of doing it. But I like the idea of like going through and doing these different playthroughs to unlock all the different endings and seeing all the scenes and getting the platinum in that one. That sounds very fun. Final Fantasy 15 is pretty high on the list as well. Obviously, I love that series, and 15 in particular seems like a fun one to get the platinum in. I already mentioned Fallout 76 is up there. Spider-Man on PS4 would be a layup. It's basically just doing some of those damn random crimes, so it'd be kind of monotonous, but I'll obviously get that one day because it's just an easy layup. I would love to get Fallout New Vegas on the board, but I'm just nowhere near like Fallout 3. I just had to clean up a couple extra things when I went through it this year, but New Vegas, I gotta go through like multiple playthroughs of like getting the different endings. The PS3 version is just such a mess. I just don't know if it's worth it to spend that much more time on the PlayStation 3 version when I can play through the fantastic version on Series X. Another interesting one I mentioned at the jump, but one of the games with the oldest platinums I have that don't have dates is Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection, which requires you to just kind of dabble in all the games that they have on there. It's hard to imagine when I'll ever get to that, but that does sound like a fun one to go through and just kind of get some perspective on those Sega Genesis games. Just a couple more here. My wife is really crazy about this board game called Wingspan, which is it's a fun game, a fun little board game. But they just added a PlayStation 5 version, like literally just this week, that has trophies and a platinum. So I might hop onto that one. That I'm hoping for a sale on that, and surely it'll go on sale at some point. I've already bought it on my phone and on my Switch just because she's so crazy about it, and I played all of those versions for a grand total of 0 seconds. So I definitely am not justified in purchasing another copy of the game, but I do think I will get the PS5 version so I can get the platinum trophy because that does sound kind of fun. And I like it's a card game and I like card games, so I'll probably go through that one. And then last one here I want to mention here is the Stanley Parable, which I've never played, but I get a kick out of this platinum trophy list because it actually requires you to beat the game and then not play it for 10 years before picking it back up again. So better get going on that one. But that's it. That's kind of my trophy stories and experiences, my favorite trophies that I have unlocked. And I hope that if you're a fan of PlayStation trophies, I hope this has been a fulfilling listen for you. Thanks for taking the time to listen to this episode of Controlled Burns. For more lists, discussions, and other topics to come from me in the near future and from future guests that I hope to have on very soon, then you can listen to us here every week. Main goal is to upload on Mondays, but yeah, there might be some other Tuesday uploads if things kind of fall through like they did this week. You can write into the podcast at ControlledBurnes with an ES at gmail.com. I will read your emails on the air if you'd like. So yeah, write into the podcast if you are interested in doing so. And if you've been listening to these episodes and you've been enjoying them, then I invite you to subscribe, follow, like, review, whatever it is that you can do on the platform of your choice where you listen to your podcasts. So thanks again for listening, and until next week, keep it warm.